Hey, I'm LA. Today I'm just coming to talk about virtual machines. Virtual machines, they're amazing. Almost everything we do in our real lives actually involve virtual machines without even knowing. So let's get right into it. So when it comes to virtual machines, right, I would always separate them into three different categories. One of the first categories is that they're very convenient. The reason for this point is because instead of having to set up a completely new machine from scratch, the CPU, the RAM, the power supply, the graphic card or graphical interface, you don't necessarily need a graphic card if the CPU has an integrated graphical chip. With a virtual machine, you completely shut out that whole entire procedure. You instead get to run the machine how you want it right away, very quickly, very convenient. The next reason is the isolation. A good example of this would be, let's say if you want to install a piece of software that you may have gotten from somewhere that you can't really trust 100%. So instead you could just put that application or software into the virtual machine, and then this way you can detect if there might be some malicious activities happening. Another thing as well too with the isolation is that you get to have a computer where you could then run services and applications, so then you could keep your primary computer free and do whatever you like with it, whatever you please. The other thing with virtual machines as well is that they're customizable. So what this means is that you could select if you want your virtual machine to be 4 gigabytes. You could select if your machine's gonna be 2 gigabytes or 6 gigabytes, 2 V-cores, 4 V-cores. Example, on my current machine here, I have a lot of different things on. Here on my Ryzen, it's 2600X. This is my main primary computer at the moment. Here I have 6 cores, right? So it's actually appears as 12 because of virtualization. So physical cores, then with virtualization, it transforms it by 2. So this means if I were to run virtual machines on my main computer here, I could at least have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's say if I'm not using this computer for anything else, I'm not gonna game, I'm not gonna do anything, I could actually have 6 virtual machines running with 2 cores each. So that's how customizable it is. And you could always adjust the RAM, you could always adjust everything else however you like at any moment actually. So that's what's really cool about virtual machines. So we're gonna also talk about the next important thing with virtual machines is there are 2 different types, right? There's the hypervisor type 1s, and then there is the hypervisor type 2s. What are the differences, you may ask? Hypervisor type 1s, they pull the resources directly from your physical host machine, and then it replicates it and turns it into a virtual machine. Hypervisor type 2, it's basically being installed, it's a software application being installed on top of the operating system. It's basically software. So you have there's more areas of the virtual machine actually obtaining errors and whatnot, because it's not directly grabbing the resources directly from the machine. Instead, it has to go through the application, has to go through some other different hoops, then it goes directly to the physical machine. Me personally, I prefer hypervisor type 1s, but that's not the point of this video. So we're gonna look over the different type of hypervisor type 1s and different type of hypervisor type 2s. One of them, the one that we will be looking at today actually, because I want to show you guys how to create your own virtual machines, so this way, you guys could actually learn some stuff and actually play around. You don't have to be scared. So one of them would be Microsoft Hyper-V. Don't worry, we'll look over it. Another one would be VMware ESXi. Now this one is a mixture of Unix and Linux, but several firmware updates. They updated the kernel, so it's a little bit more different from Linux. Certain things that would work on a Linux-based operating system will not work on VMware ESXi. Oops. The next one now will be Proxmox. That's personally one of my favorites, but we will look over all these other ones eventually. And now for you MacBook people, you got Boot Camp. So Boot Camp, you could actually install your own operating system. You can install whatever you like, and you know, you have your MacBook, and then you could have several different operating systems on there using Boot Camp. As I said, it's a Hypervisor Type 1, so it's actually pulling the direct resources from your MacBook. Now for Hypervisor Type 2s, VirtualBox is one of the most famous ones. This is where most of the beginners and all of us have started off with, especially in school. In school, VirtualBox was the application for us to create our virtual machines and play around with them and whatnot. It's one of the strongest. It's one of the most famous one, actually. The other one would be VMware Player. Now this is another one for MacBook, which is Parallels Optimized Computing. The last one will be QEMU. QEMU is a pretty interesting Hypervisor Type 2 application. With this application, you could actually load up different virtual machines that you may have even created in Proxmox, for example. The virtual machines in Proxmox will be a QCOW file, spelled as Q, then cow. In QEMU, you could actually load those up. When I did have Proxmox installed on a dedicated server I have off-site, before reinstalling the operating system to try out something different, I actually backed up all my virtual machines as QCOW files, and I could actually load them up in QEMU. We'll look at that at another date though, but these are all your different choices. Now, at the time of making this video, I did learn about this one called Windows Sandbox. I was just basically exploring my Windows 10 computer, and then I just found this. This is actually a new not operating system, but a new different type of application. It came to existence in Windows Update 1903, actually. The Windows Sandbox, the user, it's already created in Windows User. It's called WAG Utility. It also creates a virtualized environment with 4 gigabytes of RAM and about 40 gigabytes of hard disk space. It stays open as long as you keep the app open, but loses everything once it's closed. What this means is that let's say you've installed some applications or whatnot to test it out in this environment. Everything will be saved in that virtualized environment. But however, once you close the app, it kills off everything. But there are ways to bypass it. But as I wrote here, we'll talk about it another time. So now I'm just gonna show you guys how to get Windows Hyper-V working, to get your virtual machine operating, so then, you know, play around with it and do some cool things. All right, so stick around, I'll show you how to do it. All right, so when it comes to setting up your own virtual machine, you want to set up several different features on your Windows machine. Just to let you know, it does work on Windows 7 as well, not only Windows 10. It works on Windows 8, 8.1, and 7. But why would he be using Windows 8 and 8.1 anyways? Upgrade to Windows 10. Alright, so we need to go here. You just go simply down here, type here to search. You type in turn, or you could just type in Windows. So this is what we need to find. Turn Windows features on or off. You click on have to look in the list. We find Hyper-V. Simply just check off the checkbox. But in case you want to look a little bit more in depth in what's in there, we click on the plus. We look at them. So here, the Windows Hyper-V management tools. This one's the GUI. So it's this, the GUI, and we also have the opportunity to control it through PowerShell. What is PowerShell? PowerShell is a different version. Well, not different version, but it's a more advanced version of command prompt. PowerShell uses commandlets, CMDLETS, while command prompt uses bat scripts. So you have that. Then after, for the Hyper-V platform, you want to turn on the Hyper-V Hypervisor and Hyper-V services. Hyper-V Hypervisor, okay. Sometimes you may have to activate through your computer BIOS. If you need a little bit more help, you could always message me or give me a comment, and we could look into it. But we'll need to get your motherboard version and the type of motherboard you're using, so then we could look a little bit more into it. So once you have these clicked off, so once you have Hyper-V clicked off, right? Once you hit OK, it's gonna ask you to restart. Then you just simply restart. That's it. Takes about 2, 3, 5 minutes, depending on the speed of your computer. But you know, right now we're 2020. You should be using an SSD for your operating system. So once the computer is back up, you simply go on Hyper-V Manager, right? Then let's start creating the virtual machine. So let's go directly here, New. Should have it right here. We go on Virtual Machine. Let's go on Next. We're gonna call this Windows Client. So these are the two different versions. One thing we must take in note is once a virtual machine has been created, you cannot change its generation. What does this mean? Generation 1, it supports 32 bits and 64 bits. It's the original, OG. Generation 2, it has UEFI based firmware, and you do need 64 bits. What does the UEFI mean? It's a newer version of BIOS, which BIOS is the basic input-output system. That one reads your reads everything that connects your motherboard, the USBs, the graphical interface. It reads everything that gets connected to the motherboard. But this time we'll just go on Generation 1. It's okay. But do remember, if you need something a little bit more up to date, you might as well go with Generation 2. We're gonna go with 1024, so that's 1 GB of memory. This feature is pretty cool, but I would only suggest to use it on a machine that you have an abundant amount of memory. The reason why is because, let's say your operating system, let's say your virtual machine is starting to throttle and it doesn't have as much resources for RAM, right? It's going to automatically start pulling more RAM from your computer, and if you don't have enough RAM, that could be a little scary, especially when you start seeing, oh snap, my computer is going a little bit slower. What is going on? Well, it's actually this feature that's turned on. It happens. It happens. So we're gonna turn that off. We're gonna keep it at 1 GB. Let's go next. Here, this is where you'll select your connection. So we'll look over the connections later. So for now, we're just gonna go on default switch. Let's go next. Here is where you could select. Here is where you can select where you want to create the virtual hard disk. So the virtual hard disk, okay, you want to always keep it somewhere that you'll know for certain where it is. Yeah, I'm gonna change the amount to let's say 25 gigs. We'll switch it to that. If you already, something cool with Hyper-V, if you already have an existing virtual hard disk, you could actually go and look for it and then add it directly. So if you already have data on another virtual hard disk, you could just import it. You don't need to create a new one. That's something I find really cool with VHDX format. And then this, you could attach this later, but no, we're not going to do that. We want to create a virtual machine. So we're going to go next. Here we're going to install the operating system. I have my operating system in ISOs. So we're going to grab the Windows 7, okay? Then we're going to go next, finish. It's creating the disk, it's adding everything. So now you want to just, so right now it's created here, right? So now we want to right click it, start. Let's double click it now. And ta-da, we got a virtual machine. So we're gonna install it from a 32-bit, 64-bit, but it's gonna be 64-bit. That's what I'm gonna choose. So just this quick, we already have a Windows virtual machine running. And remember, this is a Hypervisor Type 1. So this is pulling the resources directly from my Hyper-V server. So now we're gonna choose yes, next. You know, the basic Windows installation. And this is an OEM disc. This is the reason why you're gonna see a bunch of different options. It's an old OEM disc I did get from a program I used to go to from back in the days. So let's go with my favorite company, Asus. One of my favorite companies. So we're gonna go next, accept, next, custom, okay, then go next. And it's gonna do its thing, you know, it's gonna take some time. I'll come back to you once it's finished so we could see like, yes, it's installed and it's working. And then let's get it, you know what I mean? Alright, so the operating system finished installing on the virtual machine that I had before. So now we're gonna go with the name Dylan. Dylan spits hot fire. Yeah, let's call him that. Dylan spits hot fire. Hey, where's my H? Shoot. It's okay, it's okay. It's okay. So we're just gonna go with a random password. It's okay, I don't mind really. Always adjust your time. Adjusting your time is very important. We're gonna make a video later on how to fix your time and everything, your time zone on both Linux and Windows, because it's really important having your time set to date. If this is a home network that you're connected to, you choose this one. If you're at work, you select this one. If you're in a public spot, make sure to select this one. These make a very big difference. If you have a home network, then what happens is that it sees all the different machines that are connected to your router. So let's say if you want to have one machine act as a file server, it's useful to just select this one so it sees everything and you could just connect directly to your file server. If you have a work network, then it'll use domains and it connects to the domain, and then every computer in a domain has its own roles. And then you have a public network, so let's say in McDonald's, you want to keep it at that. So then other people who may be connected to the McDonald's Wi-Fi, they cannot just go and start seeing all the information. You know, there's a lot of you know, I don't really want to talk about it in this video, but there's a lot of ways on how to screw people around that are connected to public networks. I'm not going to talk about it in this video, but it's very common. When you choose public network, it shuts your computer off from being discovered. So just going to go home network. So remember, this is the same virtual machine that I was creating here. The Windows client. It's the same one here. So we can see exactly what's going on. It's been up for 3 minutes. It's finalizing. Perfect. So now we're inside the computer, and here you go. It's a completely different computer. So when it comes to the internet, I might have to do a different setup here, but the main thing we want to keep attention on is the virtual switch manager. So this is a very important option here. So if I want to give this one internet, I'll have to put it on like VNAT and not default. The way how I set up my computer is that I'm using 2 different network interfaces. I'm using a Wi-Fi USB and I'm using the physical cable. Physical cable, instead of bridging, I gave all my virtual machines direct access to the physical cables. That's why it shows not connected here. Now to create the virtual switch, you just have to create one from here. These are the different options. So you have external, which creates a virtual switch that binds to the physical network adapter so that the virtual machines can access the physical network. Internal creates a virtual switch that can be used only by the virtual machines that run on this physical computer and between the virtual machines and the physical computer. An internal virtual switch does not provide connectivity to a physical network connection. So this means anything that will be used in this one, they're able to connect to each other as long as they're on the same machine, on the same physical machine that's run Hyper-V. And private, one of my favorite. Private, it creates a virtual switch that can be only used by the virtual machines I run on, so it does not connect to anything else, does not communicate with the physical host. This one's useful if you want to try out applications that may be a little dangerous, or applications that you may have, like I said before, may have gotten somewhere that you do not fully trust. Then you'll create a private virtual switch, and then you add it onto that virtual machine. So this way, your virtual machine is isolated. It cannot communicate with the local host, the physical host, or the other virtual machines. So I've already created one here. It's okay. This one I call it VNAT. It's using the external network. It's using the direct Ethernet to create it. You just hit OK. Bam, you're good. So now, how to add it onto the virtual machine, right? So right now I don't have any internet. Right? Let's try and ping Google. Dylan spits hot aya. Let's talk to Google. General failure, general failure, general failure, general failure. Well, that don't feel that good. So what we need to do in this case, we'll need to give it internet. So let's go directly here, Windows client, right click it, settings. We go to network adapter. Now I switch it to VNAT. So remember, my VNAT was the one that has a direct connection to the internet. So I selected my Ethernet directly from the drop down. So how do you find this out? You can find it out by right clicking you'll see a computer with a cable. If you're on Wi-Fi, you'll see this. You just simply right click it. You go on open a network insurance center. Next up, you go to network insurance center right over here. You connect to this one. You go over here, change adapter settings, and then this is where you can find all your different networks that you have set up. So you would look for the one that is the cable. So now I already added the VNAT, which is the external network. Let's go back on it. Okay, this is looking a little bit better. So as I said, you should have this one if you're directly connected via cable. So Dylan spits hotaya. Let's try to talk to Google again. Bam, 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 and we good. So I hope you've learned something new today on how to create your own virtual machine using Hyper-V. We will be looking at different methods on how to create virtual machines, so stay tuned. And if you have any more questions or anything else, just let me know. I'll keep myself open. Peace.